Alongside Brent Hubbs and Rob Lewis, I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable. The 2021 season set to kick off 8 o'clock on Thursday. Guys, just glad to turn the page. It's been a long off season.
It certainly has, and I know Tennessee fans are anxious to get started, and they're anxious to see what is this? What is this Josh Heupel system? What is this, program under Josh Heupel? Lots of question marks heading into this one, Rob.
Yeah, and it all starts at the quarterback position. I mean, that's anytime you have uncertainty there, that's going to dominate the conversation. That certainly has been the case at Tennessee, and Josh Heupel, tried to keep it under wraps. I think everybody felt like not everybody, but most people felt like Joe Milton was going to be a starter for a couple of weeks. He made that official on Monday, and now that is going to be the biggest storyline Thursday night.
Be interesting to see how Joe Milton plays, Austin. When you talk about the things you hear about him in fall camp, some of the things that he does seems pretty effortless, but consistency is the biggest thing that you keep hearing that they want, and he's been better at as fall camp has gone through.
Yeah, he's really kind of, I think, more than anything, just kind of settled himself down. The big question was heading in is, could he grasp the offense, or would he allow other players through his play to be in this quarterback competition more than, I think most people thought they would be. Joe went out and won the job, made plays with his legs, made plays with his arm, and, has got that big arm, Brent, but, at the end of the day, has got to learn to make the short and intermediate throws, make those look effortless, just like he makes that 75-yard bomb look effortless.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he's just got to play within himself. He's got a lot of confidence in himself, which is great, but he doesn't have to make the what's the old Jerry Green line? The magnanimous play. Okay, he doesn't have to make a magnanimous play. He's got to make the easy, simple play, as you mentioned. And I think that's Joe's biggest challenge coming into game one here. Is you're going to be wound up, you're going to be pretty hyped up, settle in, and get going. And I'm with you guys. We were talking about this before we got started. Let him get some play. Don't be in a situation.
If you jump out on him, let him play.
Let him keep playing because he needs as many series and reps as he can get.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing that can ease the burden for Joe Milton, at least the expectations on Joe Milton for Thursday night's game against Bowling Green, Rob, is the running game. And they've got kind of a three-headed monster. But we'll start specifically with Jabari Small and Tyon Evans, and then sprinkle in Jalen Wright. These three running backs and the way that they like to kind of really be balanced. Everybody loves to talk about how Heupel throws it, but he really wants to be a balanced offense, so he wants to run it.
And, I mean, if you look at this should be a great night for Tennessee on the ground. If you look at Bowling Green's defensive numbers from last year, I mean, they're atrocious. I mean, it's like a really bad Xbox player. They were dead last in the country in rushing defense, 310 yards a game. I mean, nobody else was over 270. And they had a ton of transfers. Bottom line, this should be a game where you can work out some kinks on the offensive line with your tailbacks.
And I think when you look at the tailbacks, Tyon Evans is I like Jalen Wright. I think he's a good fit. I think Evans is the kind of the X factor that we're all curious to see. He looks the part. He's as big, but again, you hear Jerry Mack talk about his ability to run outside zone, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's their best pass protector. Been a lot of buzz about him. This should be a night for him to shine, Austin. And what exactly does he do and is he as good as advertised, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think Wright will get as many touches as Evans and or Jabari Small, but like the running back situations, to me, like the receivers or the defensive line, I mean, on any given day, one of these guys could have the best game. It's not just locked into being one guy. Evans does kind of have that it factor about him, but people forget about this guy right here, Jabari Small, who, again, is maybe not the flavor of the week because he's not new. He's been in the program before. All the fans get excited to see that new guy, the fast guy in Jalen Wright, the JUCO guy in Tyon Evans, like we're seeing right there. But Jabari Small's kind of sitting there going, what about me?
Well, we know he loves that mentality, too.
Yeah.
He loves the chip on his shoulder. He's a guy who felt like he should have gotten more carries last year, probably should have gotten more carries last year. He will run as hard as anybody you'll see on the field on Saturday or on Thursday night. So it should be, again, with this, as Rob mentioned, this Bowling Green defense and how bad they've been, should be a fun night for the running game.
Offensively, everybody's got the high hopes. Defensively, coming out of the spring, nobody thought much of anything because they were basically had the three of us playing linebacker, and that's going to be my joke that I continue to say in everything we do. But defensively now, they just look like a different group. I mean, they've got a lot of more bodies in there. Players that were injured are back. They've had all the transfers come in, and defensively, you just feel like this team they're not going to be the 85 Bears, but I think they're going to be better than what people expected coming out of spring, because I think people unfairly judge them in spring.
Yeah, but we still don't know what Tim Banks is. What's his system, Rob? What does he do? How does his system go? I think more than the talent tonight or Thursday night, what they look like, it's about what do they do defensively? Kind of what do they hang their hat on defensively?
Yeah, I agree, because offensively, you know what Josh Heupel's about. I mean, he's got a track record. He's got a reputation. He's an established offensive coach. Tim Banks, blank slate. They're a lot deeper on defense. As Austin mentioned, they have a whole lot more, much more depth. But what does Tim Banks want to do? I mean, does he want to pressure? Does he want to be bend but don't break? Does he want to try to force the issue? Does he want to try to lay back? I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I think that's probably one of the more fascinating aspects of Thursday night's game. How do they approach a game where they should be way more talented to be able to dictate what they want to do to the opponent?
I think as a defensive staff, they want to force turnovers. I think they know they're going to give up yards, give up points. Teams are going to move it between the 20s. They want to bend but don't break, but ultimately they're going to rely heavily on making turnovers. That's one thing that they've done in fall camp, is strip the ball, force fumbles, get picks, no matter who the quarterback was in the game. And I think that's going to be kind of what you hang your hat on if you're Tim Banks and this defensive staff, a defensive staff that's more experienced. Now, they've not coached together like the offensive staff has, but when you look at the totality of their coaching experience between Tim Banks, Rodney Garner, Mike Eckler, and Willie Martinez, they've done it for a long time at a high level.
Well, and I don't know that we'll get to see the secondary on full display Thursday night, Rob, because you look at Bowling Green. I think they completed like 43% of their passes.
And have a new quarterback and new coach.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what you're going to see, how much they're going to challenge Tennessee in the back end. I just have a suspicion that this Tennessee secondary is going to play much better than they did a year ago. I like Willie Martinez. He's got more experience back there than you have anywhere else. I think Trayvon Flowers is ready to have, if he can stay healthy, have a better year. I just sense in talking to those guys, you kind of get a vibe that they've got a lot more belief in themselves than they had at any point last year.
And Willie was talking this group up even back in the spring. I mean, when he first got here. And I think, for me, one of the most surprising storylines coming out of fall camp is that Trayvon Flowers has been the best player or had the best camp. I mean, I didn't enter August thinking he was a bad player, but he's just one of those guys you don't think about. He's a veteran.
He's shown flashes, but he's always been injured.
He's had the last 2 seasons cut short by injury. He was a baseball player in high school, and he just never really done a lot.
You just can't sit there and go, this is a play. I remember that play.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember that. He's just not had those moments. So does that change? Because if that changes and he starts making plays in the middle of the field and produces those turnovers, this defense is not going to be a juggernaut, as you mentioned, but they're a different defense than anybody thought that they would be. So how does Flowers play? How does Warren Burrell play at the corner position? I think if those two guys perform well, then I think this secondary and this defense can be better, a lot better than any of us thought they were going to be in spring. When in spring, Austin, you just weren't sure if they were going to be able to line up with 11 guys at one point. I mean, they just had no numbers in the spring at certain positions.
That's right. Our eligibility is expired. For Rob Lewis and Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable.